In today's instructional video, we are discussing documentary. And I'm excited for this video because I've come up with a concept for it based on documentary itself, and specifically cinema verite and direct cinema, which are two very similar forms of documentary that we'll talk about momentarily. So in today's video, to really get at truth, I'm going to do something very different. I'm going to let this all roll in one take, and there will be no edits. I will tell you myself when to stop. Why am I doing this? Because I think one of the things that have consumed documentarians since the 60s is truth. And how do we get truth into the documentary? And so, let me begin with your first question. And once I'm done asking this question, I would like you to answer the question by pausing the video. And once you have a true idea, then start the video back up and I'll give you one possible answer. So, the very first question. What is one assumption that the general audience takes for granted when it comes to documentaries? Go ahead, pause. Now I'm giving you a couple of seconds here. Just in case you haven't paused yet, I'm telling you to pause. Like really, pause and answer the question. So one of the things the audience assumes about a documentary is that it is true. But how do we know we're truly getting truth? We just assume, as audience members, that the documentarian's work is telling us the truth about the reality they're filming. But there are all kinds of ways a documentarian employs his or her techniques to tell the story behind the documentary. They need to hook you in. Because if they don't hook you in, you're not going to watch it. And therefore, who's ever funding their film isn't getting their money back and not making any money on it. So truth is really vital to a lot of us, especially us who are artists. When truth is at a premium these days, we don't know if we can trust our politicians, the media, the church, the list goes on. And so in today's video, how I'm getting at truth is, I'm letting this go for one long take. I'm not going to edit it because I want you to see me as a human being. I want you to know that I am manipulating you. I'm showing you with my ideas. And of course you have to think, well, of course I know he's sharing his ideas with me. But see, you're thinking about the grade. And so there's something in it for you. And so you're watching this documentary or instructional video in a different way. You're worried about the tests or the quizzes or the discussion forums that will come out of this. And so you already have buy-in. But am I telling you the truth? Am I getting all my facts straight? I still have my cheat sheet here thrown onto a piece of scrap paper. So to start off this video with traditional forms of documentary and the traditional tools documentarians employ. So my next question for you, number 2. What are strategies that documentaries employ to make you believe they are putting truth into the mise en scène? Go ahead, take a pause, answer the question. Now, I'm sure you've come up with things like statistics, charts and graphs, historical footage or music, and probably expert witnesses. When we get those 5 things, we tend to believe what it is we're seeing. But can I not manipulate a chart or a graph? Can I not take a piece of historical footage and put it into a new context? Can I not, don't I choose what historical footage I want to utilize? Doesn't the documentarian choose what historical footage they want to utilize and bypass other things that could, I don't know, throw their ideas off, make their argument less persuasive? And usually, when critics look at documentaries, they only talk about the misinformation. They don't talk about how one should analyze the documentary. And that's what we should be doing. Like, how is the documentarian creating this system of belief or systems of meaning? How does a documentarian hook you in to watching a documentary? What number one strategy do they employ? Go ahead, take a pause. I bet that you came up with narrative. They tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. What part of history has a beginning, middle, and end? Very little. If we look at the end of World War I, right, we know the day that it ended, but did it truly end World War I? What about all those lives World War I affected? And when I say affected, I mean the people who were missing limbs, who were disfigured through the face. About all those men who suffered PTSD and didn't even know they had PTSD, just calling it shell shock. That war continued on. And I get to plant a seed for my In the Reel. And the film and documentary you're going to be watching, Pina by Wim Wenders, you know, Wim Wenders came from Dusseldorf, Germany. He was born at the end of the war, and so his life in Dusseldorf, he thought the whole world was flat. And he had half buildings. Everything was rumbles until he found painting. But I'll talk more about that in the Reel. So documentaries employ a story, and they get you to feel. And you probably feel many different things. You probably feel that, yay, I'm part of the cause. I'm watching this documentary, and I'm understanding what it's like to live with breast cancer. Or I'm understanding what it's like to have autism. And the list goes on about what kind of subjects documentarians employ. And you feel because you're watching the documentary, you're doing something. You're part of the cause. You're making things better because you're feeling some compassion. And that's great to feel compassion. But it's not so great if that compassion you're feeling doesn't cause you to get into action. And so many of these documentarians leave you with, I cried a little, and I know something now. And documentaries end with this idea that there's like some closure, that the problem is being solved by people. So you're like, ooh, what a relief. I don't have to help out with that. But I felt and I understand. Maybe if something comes up on Facebook or Instagram or some donation thing, I'll throw in a couple of dollars. But have you really done anything by watching a documentary? So think about that.